Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, the investigation into the shadowy family network that owned the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry has hit a snag, with key suspects refusing to show up for questioning. Korea's ruling Saenuri Party has selected political heavyweight Chonghaejin to run for Seoul mayor in the June 4th local elections. He'll go toe-to-toe with incumbent Park Won-soon in less than 1 month. First, Korea and Japan will hold a second round of talks this week on the issue of Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, May 13th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. We start with the latest on the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Nearly 1 month has passed since the ferry sank, and investigators believe they are edging closer to uncovering the real owner of the sunken vessel. But making significant headway is proving difficult, as those with the closest ties to the man in question are refusing to cooperate. Connie Kim reports.
Investigators believe they are narrowing in on the real owner of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, which they believe is the key to unlocking what may have caused the accident. Key figures associated with Chonghaejin Marine Company, the practical owner of the ferry, have not been cooperating with the investigation. Prosecutors summoned in Yoo Dae-gyun, the first son of Chonghaejin owner Yoo Byung-eun, for questioning Monday morning, but he failed to appear. If he had shown up, they would have asked him about his involvement in Sewol Group, under which Chonghaejin operates. The prosecution has issued an arrest warrant for Yoo to force him in. Yoo currently holds majority shares in 3 Sewol Group affiliates. He was paid nearly $10,000 a month for his duties, and the prosecution suspects he is deeply involved with the day-to-day operations. Investigators are also looking at him on charges of tax evasion. Prosecutors did have a chance to talk with another member of the Yoo family on Sunday. Yoo Byung-eun, the older brother of Chonghaejin owner Yoo Byung-eun, was questioned overnight on his possible involvement in the construction of the Sewol-ho ferry and the business operations of Chonghaejin Marine Company. Yoo Byung-eun is likely to be summoned sometime this week. While investigators hone in on the ferry operator and owner, the search for those still missing in the accident continues off Jindo Island in southwestern Korea. Fast tidal currents have made it difficult for rescue personnel to find the 29 passengers still unaccounted for. Operations are focused on the 3rd and 4th floor of the vessel, but with the threat of the 4th floor collapsing, authorities say divers are looking for a new way inside by breaking through the walls of the vessel. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, while the captain and many of the crew of the Sewol-ho ferry have been widely vilified in Korea for their cowardly actions during the accident, there were a handful of heroes who paid the ultimate price, helping others. The Korean government on Monday recognized 3 part-time crew members who died as national martyrs. 22-year-old Park Ji-young, a part-time worker on the ferry, endeared herself to the nation after it came to light that she had given her life jacket to a passenger as she sought to guide people to safety. Kim Gi-eung and Jung Hyun-sun, an engaged couple who also worked for the ferry operator, could have escaped the sinking vessel but stayed to help trapped passengers. Their designation as martyrs means they can all be buried at a national cemetery. Their families will also be eligible for financial compensation, medical assistance and other incentives. The government is also reviewing a list of others who are aboard the Sewol-ho for the martyr designation. President Park Geun-hye is expected to deliver an address to the nation in the coming days to apologize for the ferry disaster and the government's handling of the tragedy. She'll also unveil a new plan to improve all aspects of safety here in Korea. Chae-sun reports.
When President Park Geun-hye addresses the nation in the coming days, she's expected to apologize to the Korean people for the government's failure to prevent the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy. She has apologized a number of times since the accident nearly a month ago, but has been criticized for not making one directly to the public. In her speech, President Park will also lay out the details of a new master plan to bolster national safety and a new ministry she's previously pledged to establish to oversee emergency response and management.
재난 안전의 컨트롤 타워에 대해서는 전담 부처를 설치해서 사회 재난과 자연재해 관리를 일원화해 효율적이고 강력한 통합 재난 대응 체계를 구축하는 것이 바람직하다는 결론에 이르렀습니다.
At a surprise meeting with their senior secretaries on Sunday, the president also discussed ways to bring about sweeping reforms to public service and root out irregularities that are blamed for having caused a deadly ferry accident. It's a sentiment President Park first iterated 2 weeks after the Sewol-ho ferry sank.
이번에는 반드시 과거로부터 이어져 온 잘못된 문제들을 바로잡고 새로운 대한민국의 틀을 다시 잡아서 국민들의 신뢰를 되찾고 안심하고 살 수 있는 대한민국을 만드는 길에 나설 것입니다.
There's also speculation about reshuffles within the cabinet and the presidential office, especially as a number of officials have been slammed publicly for inconsiderate behavior since the Sewol-ho accident. The president's address will likely come either Tuesday, when a cabinet meeting is scheduled, or towards the end of the week, when the prosecution and police are expected to announce an interim report on their joint ferry disaster probe. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Korea's ruling Saenuri Party has selected billionaire business tycoon turned politician Jong Mong-jun to run for Seoul mayor in the June 4th local elections. He'll face off against sitting mayor Park Won-soon. Ji Myung-gil has this report.
When voters in Seoul take to the polls next month to cast their ballots for mayor, the name under the Saenuri Party banner will read Jong Mong-jun. The 7-term lawmaker and former presidential candidate beat out former Prime Minister Kim Hwang-sik and Supreme Council member Lee Hae-hoon in a primary on Monday at Seoul's Olympic Gymnastics Hall. After earning the nomination, Chung pledged to go out and win come June 4th.
I will fight to win back Seoul's mayoral seat in the upcoming June 4th local elections. I will provide more quality jobs and improve welfare systems for Seoul's citizens. I will work for President Park Geun-hye, our Saenuri Party, and for the people who love our country.
The business tycoon, the largest shareholder in Hyundai Heavy Industries, said he had a vision to make Seoul the economic, cultural, and tourism center of East Asia. He also said he wanted to make the capital a more attractive place to live, pointing out that the capital's population has fallen below the 10 million mark this year. Chung was selected through a process that gives the votes of party delegates, party members, and ordinary citizens 80% weight. Opinion polls accounted for 20%. Chung will face off in the race against incumbent Park Won-soon of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy. With the contenders for Seoul mayor decided, Chung and Park are expected to hit the campaign trail next week as they look to secure a 4-year term running the nation's capital. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, the South Korean government came out with an uncharacteristically strong criticism of North Korea on Monday, saying that the country exists for one person only and the country must disappear soon. Hwang Sang-hee tells us what prompted Seoul's Defense Ministry spokesperson to go on the offensive.
South Korea's defense ministry ramped up its criticism of North Korea Monday, even going as far as to say the regime must disappear soon. Defense Ministry spokesperson Kim Min-seok said during a press briefing that North Korea is not a real country and exists solely for the benefit of one person, referring to its young dictator Kim Jong-un.
Can North Korea even be regarded as a country? Is there human rights? Is there freedom? It continues to make false claims that are historically retrograde as a country that cannot exist and should disappear soon.
The comments, which came as a response to North Korea's denial of responsibility over the 3 drones found near the inter-Korean border earlier this year, will likely draw the ire of Pyongyang. While South Korea has been highly critical of North Korea's nuclear ambitions, its latest remarks contain much stronger language than usual. Seoul tries to avoid commenting on anything that could be interpreted as a collapse of the North Korean regime over worries of provoking Pyongyang. The two Koreas had agreed earlier this year to end all cross-border slandering, but North Korea has not complied, hurling sexist and racist remarks against the leaders of South Korea and the United States ever since President Obama's visit to Seoul late last month. The two leaders had vowed then to stand shoulder to shoulder against any North Korean provocations. Renewed inter-Korean tensions are sparking concerns of a fourth nuclear test by North Korea in protest of what it calls U.S. and South Korean hostilities. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Korea and Japan will hold a second round of talks this week on the issue of Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean women during World War II. An official at Seoul's foreign ministry says Lee Sang-dok, Korea's Director General for Northeast Asian Affairs, and his Japanese counterpart Junichi Ihara will meet in Tokyo. This as a follow-up to a meeting held last month in Seoul. He is expected to reiterate Seoul's demand for an official apology and legal compensation from Japan for the Japanese military's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Tokyo claims the issue was resolved through a 1965 treaty when the two countries normalized their diplomatic ties. Around 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese army at comfort stations in the early 20th century. Now, Lee Gun-hee, the man credited with turning Samsung into one of the world's biggest and most profitable companies, remains in a stable condition in hospital after suffering a heart attack over the weekend. Medical staff at the Samsung Medical Center in southern Seoul say the 72-year-old Samsung Electronics chairman is receiving hypothermia treatment to minimize damage to his heart. Hypothermia treatment prevents the generation of toxic material in blood vessels by slowing the cell metabolism before inducing the recovery of body heat. This means that he will stay in a deep sleep. Doctors have also taken steps to widen Lee's arteries, and he's now able to breathe on his own. It's not known, though, how long Lee will be hospitalized. Despite news of Lee's serious health problems, Samsung Electronics shares closed almost 4% higher on Monday. Now, the Korean won has been hovering around its highest level in nearly 6 years, and all signs suggest it will remain strong in the coming months. Our Hwang Ji-hye has more on where analysts expect the won-dollar exchange rate to end up.
Expectations are growing of a stronger Korean won, which is already trading at the 1,020 level against the US dollar. Market watchers say that by the end of this year, the won is likely to breach the psychologically important 1,000 level. The Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ predicts the Korean won to trade at 975 against the dollar, while the American banking company Wells Fargo expects it to trade at 990. Analysts attribute the strength of the won to the widely shared perception that the Korean currency is undervalued. The IMF has recently said it believed the won is undervalued by as much as 8%, and that the country has an unusually large current account surplus, which accounted for some 6% of the nation's gross domestic product last year. The U.S. Treasury Department called on Korea last month to limit foreign exchange intervention to exceptional circumstances. While there are concerns that the won is gaining strength too quickly, some analysts point out a strong dollar later this year could reverse the trend.
The recovery in the U.S. economy is back on track, and by September this year, when the Federal Reserve plans to end its stimulus programs, market expectations of a rate rise will mount, pushing up the value of the dollar.
With slowing exports to China, Park adds that even if the local currency does in fact dip to below the 1,000 level against the greenback, it will remain there only temporarily. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now staying with financial news, and foreign currency deposits in Korean banks hit a new record high last month, outstripping a high mark set just 2 months earlier. The Bank of Korea said Monday that outstanding foreign currency denominated deposits stood at 58.4 billion US dollars as of the end of April. That's up $7.3 billion from the previous month. Corporate deposits accounted for about 90% of the total. Dollar-denominated and yuan-denominated deposits both rose on month. Officials at the central bank expect the trend to continue over the coming months as exporters put their dollars into deposits. Time now for a look through our international headlines, and for that we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center for us. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. A new video has surfaced on YouTube that claims to show the more than 200 schoolgirls kidnapped by Islamist rebel group Boko Haram last month. It shows girls wearing full veils and appearing to pray. It also showed the leader of Boko Haram, Abu Bakr Shekau, saying the group will not release the girls while their comrades are detained. Nigerian authorities are holding hundreds of suspected Boko Haram militants. The video showed some 130 girls, about half of the 276 believed to be abducted by some counts. Authorities are considering the possibility that the girls have been split into smaller groups to avoid being found. Separatists in the eastern cities of Donetsk and nearby Luhansk in Ukraine celebrated a self-declared independence after Sunday's referendum vote, claiming that 89% and 96% of voters respectively agreed they wanted self-rule. And a leader of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic is appealing to Russia to listen to the, quote, will of the people and absorb it. Ukraine's acting president Oleksandr Turchinov discounted the polls as nothing more than propaganda, a, quote, farce by terrorist separatists. The West have called the referendum illegal. Russia says it expects its results to be implemented in a civilized manner. And the world's biggest elections have wrapped in India. The marathon general elections that began on April 7th took place in multiple stages and ended on Monday. 4 major exit polls showed opposition leader Narendra Modi in the lead to be India's next prime minister, and his Bharatiya Janata Party poised to take the parliamentary majority. Official results are set to be released on Friday. The 9-phase elections recorded the country's highest voter turnout of over 66%. And finally, the central United States is being pounded with more wild weather. There were dozens of tornado reports on Sunday local time in the states of Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, South Dakota, and Indiana. This as snow overtook Wyoming and Colorado on Mother's Day weekend there. More winter storm warnings remain in effect, with the heaviest snowfall expected in the mountains of southwest Colorado, more than 30 centimeters worth through Tuesday.
And good morning to you all as we kick things off with the South Korean national football team, who began their training at the Paju National Training Center on Monday. And despite the training starting off rather quietly, with manager Hong Myung-bo arriving at the training center first, and other players arriving dressed in a suit and a yellow ribbon to pay tribute to the Sewol-ho ferry victims, it was Park Ju-young who stated that he has no reasons to go to Brazil if the people don't want him to. He added that the media should ask the people what they think, and he'll base his decisions on that. Meanwhile, manager Hong Myung-bo, who has been criticized for his recent selections, said that he'll show what the team is capable of doing in Brazil. And staying with football, Park Ji-sung, who is currently here in the nation resting after a season with PSV Eindhoven, will be holding a press conference on Wednesday, according to the JS Foundation. And of course, with so much questions swirling around the future of Park Ji-sung, the entire nation will be looking forward to his press conference, which is set to take place at the Park Ji-sung Football Center in Suwon. The 33-year-old midfielder plans to discuss his future on the pitch, as it was speculated that he will retire if the Queen's Park Rangers remain in second tier. Meanwhile, he also plans to announce his wedding plans, which has only been surrounded by rumors so far. And moving over to the PGA Players Championship, which was delayed due to the poor weather conditions on the final day of the event. And while Martin Kamer held on to claim the title, it was Chae-kyung-ju, aka KJ Choi, who shined on the final round. And despite starting off the final round at 52nd place overall, the South Korean stormed through, shooting a 7-under on the day to finish at 7-under overall to finish tied for 13th. And despite falling short in the top 10 finish, the 44-year-old has been in great form this season as he hopes to add a PGA title this season. And now finishing things off with the South Korean national basketball team, where reports have surfaced that the men's national basketball team is also looking to naturalize an American to have them play for the team. Now, following the footsteps of the women's national basketball team, who hopes to naturalize Amber Harris, the men's team is apparently looking for possible foreigners who would play for Korea. And according to several sources, some of the players are Aaron Haynes, Courtney Sims, Rod Benson, and Davon Jefferson, to name a few. And while none of the players have commented on the issue just yet, head coach Yoo Jae-hyun stated that he would prefer to have Courtney Sims on the team, believing that he best suits the team right now. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Tuesday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, the western parts of the region, including here in Seoul, we're waking up to layers of fog, so please drive with extra caution this morning. But that fog should burn off quickly as we head into the afternoon. Then a sunny day is in the picture, with highs hovering in the mid to upper 20s in most areas, and Daegu will reach 30s during the day. And right now, there are hardly any clouds hanging over the peninsula, and it should remain this crystal clear all day long. So you might want to wear a good amount of sunblock before heading out today, since the UV level will be very high to high in many regions today. And over in Jindo, winds and waves will be much calmer, with winds blowing in at 5 to 9 meters per second, and waves will be as high as 1 meter high. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul is starting out at 12, but the high will rise to 25, and Daegu will soar to 30, and Gwangju and Busan should top out at 28 and 25 respectively. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju and Daejeon will reach 24 and 27. Dokdo hikes up to 25, while Mount Keungang tops out at 16. Well, please notice the big temperature difference between lows and highs and dress accordingly to avoid getting sick. Well, that's all for me now, but I'll be back with more updates after 10.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for the weather and your advice there about the clothes. And that's all we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about 30 minutes' time. And we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.